Maybe if you keep it.
Webs of lies spinning from their mouths. Stop, look, and listen for a little while. Pay no attention to the men behind the curtain. Just look away when you see the blood spurting down to a steady drip. I promise to leave you a little bit. I'll be back for another drink tomorrow. I love the taste of your terror and your sorrow, bathing in your blood. It's never enough.
Hello and welcome to the Iron Mountain Hour. Thank you for joining us. I think we've actually not been live for about 10 minutes, and we thought we were. We were trying a new feature there, and we got the new studio set up, a couple of different camera angles here, so we can look pretty for the folks there and get a in-your-face shot and all that good stuff. So welcome to the show. Subscribe, share this with your friends, because we don't really share it. We just put it out there, and if people want to watch it, we hope they'll share it. I'm not going to try to force people to watch it or have somebody do me a favor by watching the show. So if you're into the kind of stuff we're talking about, jump on in, comment in the chat, like it, share, subscribe, encourage other people to do the same thing. I'd like to thank y'all. We actually have 50 subscribers now, so we can do mobile live streaming according to YouTube's rules. Now, it takes a little bit more than a mobile phone to get this thing set up. We've got, several pieces of equipment going to make this happen. But it's nice if I'm in the field and I see something I want to throw up on the YouTube stream and there's people actually watching it. Well, now we'll be able to do that. So we appreciate you all liking and subscribing and sharing the show, because it is getting around. We're getting views. People who are not subscribed are watching also. We're getting a lot of traction through people sending the show in text messages and through Facebook. So I really appreciate y'all doing that. And let's see. I don't know. Tim shows us not really coming up on his phone here. Let's see if we're... Yeah, we're live on Dustin's phone.
Maybe it's just my phone.
I think maybe...
Oh, no. No, I do have Wi-Fi. I'm on your thing.
I don't know. Whatever Tim did to his phone,
sorry,
it was not working correctly. So maybe you heard us for about 10 minutes there jiving. But what we were here to talk about today is the Constitution. I gave the guys each a pocket Constitution here. I had a whole drawer full of these from when I was playing a lot of gigs and stuff at bars, and a guy gave them to me, and I would come and sit them on the bar and give them out to people, and people were generally receptive to them. And before we get started on the topic tonight, I wanted to go ahead and mention Tim. He's drinking a Dr. Enuf here. He was recently featured in a short film by Dr. Enuf, doing some background music for some artwork and a little promo they had. Why don't you tell us a little about that, Tim?
Mm-hmm. It was actually an artist profile for a guy by the name of, a fella, as someone I'm friendly terms with. A fella by the name of Jason Flack. He's doing some artwork for Dr. Enuf, and they had some people come in and do like a photo shoot. Jake Higgs, I happen to know him, and he knows how much I love the green. And the green, if you're not watching, I meant Dr. Enuf. So he invited me in, and the guy was into hip-hop, and that's not something I typically do, but I consider myself pretty versatile, and I said I'll take a stab at it. They liked it.
Well, I'd say you are pretty versatile there, Tim. We I gave it a listen the other day myself, and it's a different kind of sounding thing, and it was cool to check out. And
Yeah.
I've got a little issue with my camera there, going blurry, and I forgot to flip the image around to where it'd be, to where the writing wouldn't be backwards on everything.
But it was for, if you're interested, and it's about a guy named Jason Flack. Yeah, I think he has an Instagram page that I can't quite remember now.
Missed it all up now.
You can flip to that one, and then we can fix it.
Yeah, that's what I'll have
just
to
has
do.
some greasy grease on the camera or something.
I think I caused it to lose
No, it
focus.
is like greasy grease on the camera.
No, I think I just caused it to lose focus.
But I did put
There
my
we
heart
go.
into it, because I do love me some Dr. Enuf, and turned out pretty fun. And, well, to quote the old guy, that's all I have to say about that. Mr. Forrest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Goff, I think you did something.
Yep. Tell us about the Scintillating Lens, Dustin.
Okay, yeah, actually this past week I got approval to be in a Tennessee landscape calendar, which I thought was pretty awesome.
And what's it called?
It's called think it's called Astonishing Tennessee.
Okay.
I'll give
Cool.
you the snaps. For
Hey,
that.
we'll put that in the description. I'll put both of those things in the description when the broadcast is finished, and we're going back through in the editing so you can check them out. If you're in the chat, say hello to us. I know some of you out there. Give us a shout. Let us know what you're doing tonight. Let us know what you think about the conversation. We're getting into, as I said, the Constitution. The title of the video is "It's Just a Piece of Paper, Bro." And while that's true, I still think there's a lot to be said for the Constitution. And that's what we're going to get in tonight. You know, most of the Bill of Rights we could easily argue, actually I think we could conclusively prove, is violated on a regular basis.
Daily, if not, you know.
Yeah, from the First Amendment, freedom of the press and freedom of expression, freedom to assemble. You know, so a lot of times you have to have a permit to assemble and things like that. That's just a mild, all the way up to a candidate for the Senate in Massachusetts, Dr. Shiva. He was censored. He actually had government agencies, election commissions, go and have Twitter censor him. And he found out that they actually have a back door to Twitter where they can just call them up and say, hey, we want you to censor these people. So
I
that's...
saw someone make a video. I didn't get to watch it, but I saw something on that actually a couple days ago, into probably some more.
Yeah, and he actually has look into that lawsuit if you're interested, because it's kind of crazy. I'm just giving you the very basics of it, and then we go on down to the Second Amendment, and you know you could find lots of ways, and that's violated. I mean, keep and bear means to own and carry. You have that right to own that weapon and to take it with you, and it says shall not be infringed. That means it shall not be made more difficult by the government for you to carry that weapon.
And
So
there's 20,000 gun laws from state all the way to federal.
yep, and they don't stop gun crime. So one can only, I at this point, you know, I think I was a little more naive at first. Thought that most of them were well intentioned, but I think most of it just has to do with oppression of the right to keep and bear arms. They don't like us having the guns. It's not about safety. They just don't like us having them.
Well, we want me to play devil's advocate?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Please.
You say shall not be infringed upon, right? Where do you draw the line? I guess.
I don't personally.
Okay.
Me neither.
Good, because that allows me to actually go somewhere with this, because it's not fence sitting. At what point? Because a lot of people would say, well, yeah, a lot of the anti-gun people would say, when they originally wrote that, they were using muskets. Right, and there's a big difference in a musket
They
and
had
an AK,
repeating
right?
arms back then.
Yeah, they
too.
did.
Well, it was like a...
Well, let's look at it this way. Here's my answer to that argument. The British regulars and the Loyalist militias were using the Brown Bess musket at the time. Terribly inefficient, terribly inaccurate firearm. It'd blow a hole the size of your fist in you. You wouldn't want to get shot by one, but it was very hard to hit them. The American frontiersmen and a lot of the volunteers, for example, and the over mountain men were using the Kentucky long rifle, which was far superior to the British arms. They also had cannons. Everybody had a cannon. In every town, there were several men who had cannons in the barn. And the whole idea of the Second Amendment, a lot of other people jump on the well-regulated.
Mhm.
And I've heard lots of reasons what that means, but my basic understanding of it at the time, a regulator was a fairly new invention, and it was a clock, right? A timepiece that actually kept track of the seconds and minutes, was called a regulator. And one theory that I hear that really makes the most sense to me is that well-regulated actually means able to be assembled in a timely manner, for which purpose every member of that militia, which is made of armed citizenry, must be able to have sufficient number of arms and ammunition so as to be able to support the militia should it need to be raised. So it's multifaceted, but ultimately it says being a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. What does that mean? It means the government shall not infringe upon those rights. Not that your right to own a weapon, your right to own a weapon has nothing to do with that amendment. That amendment has everything to do with the government does not have the right to infringe upon that right.
Are we going? Okay. Well, I'm going to take it maybe in a different direction.
Okay, take it.
Because if we're going to argue, because my original argument, and we can hint it if we need to, and I can go a different direction. My original argument here is, where do you stop me if you say never? Because my whole point was they were using kind of gun at the time, I can hold like a bazooka on my shoulder. Is that still? Should I still be able to own that?
I think so.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Tim, if you had any intentions on causing problems with that, I guarantee you wouldn't last very long with it.
What do you mean?
Okay, so because somebody can own a machine gun or a cannon right now, all right?
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to cause problems with your machine gun or a cannon,
Yeah.
you could probably do so, but you wouldn't last very long.
Okay, well, you missed my intentions then, because, like, if I wanted to own a bazooka,
Okay.
I'm crazy, but I'm not crazy enough to think that I could blow up something and then go, I'm going to get away with this because I'm invincible. Like, I'm just saying, like, if you gave someone, if someone was allowed to own a bazooka and they were just like, well, I'm going out with a bang, and blah-blah, because that's what somebody else's argument's going to
Well,
be.
I
It's
mean,
not necessarily
somebody
mine,
you could
but
do that with. You could do that in a number of ways that I won't even list on YouTube.
Well, yeah,
ways that
yeah.
You
But
get
I guess,
blacklisted.
see, that's the kind of cul-de-sac we're going to reach there, is because on some level, I guess the local militia is going to have to decide that some of the crazy people aren't going to be allowed to carry the guns and stuff.
Well,
you know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
there's
I mean,
some
if you've demonstrated
responsibility
if you
on
have
some level.
demonstrated that you do not have that capacity to do so, then it is up to the community. I think to infringe upon your
Golf,
right.
you got like a
before
pen. My mind just went down to that because I think that's as far as I can go with that.
But
Do
I
not.
think like felons or something who've paid their debt to society
yeah, well,
should
I'm
get
going
their
more
right back.
the bazooka. Okay.
Mentally ill.
Realistically, you can have the actual launchers. You can buy them,
Well,
but you just can't have the munition part.
I'm not
That's the
really
part
trying to
that's-
argue that we should be allowed or shouldn't be allowed to own bazookas. I'm just trying to. My whole point is that's how somebody's going to argue that they wrote it for muskets. You're saying we should be allowed to own howitzer tanks. and where do you
what
draw
they
the
wrote
line?
what they wrote it for was that the citizenry should have the same or better weapons. In that case, it was better weapons. They had better weapons than the loyalists and the regulars at that
Mhm.
time. So I find that argument
Okay, well,
moot. But we could come back to the second. But I wanted to kind of go on down to let's look at. The Fourth Amendment was basically eviscerated with the Patriot Act, what was left of it after the FISA court and after all that. No longer did the government have to issue a warrant and prove to the judge that they had a good reason to be looking at you. All they had to do was accuse you of terrorism of some sort or suspicion of terrorism, and they could listen in on your phone calls, check your emails, look at your text messages, do all kinds of stuff that they should not have the right to do under the Fourth Amendment. And that's the people have the right to be secure in their persons and their effects. So that means they can't just come up to you and be going through your pockets and going through your things. And to me, that means in your
Stop them
car,
for
that
things
means
they
your
do.
body, that means your home. They have to have a warrant and know what they're looking for to be able to go after that. The Fifth Amendment, we don't hear a lot about that. Usually, you can,
It's pretty hush hush.
it's like the right to due process, but usually you do have your Fifth Amendment. Actually, the prosecution can decide when you exercise that Fifth Amendment, if you say you're not going to say it's somebody else on trial, you're not on trial, but you say, I want to exercise my Fifth Amendment, the prosecution can then say, well, we promise you immunity, we're not going to prosecute you for this, and then you do have to actually testify if they've given you that, if they've waived prosecution for you. Then you are forced to testify. Just it can't be used against you. And then you go on to Tim's pulling them up there.
there's no way you're ever going to see that, but here they are.
Well, we got let's see, we got it pulled up right
there we go.
here.
Can you make sure the mic
And,
can still go while you're looking at it?
Yeah. I haven't pulled it up yet, but we go to the Third and Fourth Amendment. We've gone to the Fifth is
Sixth.
The Sixth. That's where we are. We got due process and right to a speedy trial, and that one can take a long time. A lot of times the government won't even give you the information they have on you, so you can answer it till you've been in jail for a really long time. The Seventh Amendment, that's trial by jury is guaranteed. Anything over $20, kind of a outdated amount there, but.
$20. I was about to say $20.
That was what it was when it was written, right? But we still use $20 for it, apparently. But if you go down to the eighth, that's what we talked about last week. I think I said it was the seventh, but it's the eighth. The excessive bail is not allowed, nor cruel and unusual punishment, which we could argue easily that both of those are indeed inflicted. we go on up to the 9th and 10th of the original amendments, and the 9th is basically the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So that just doesn't mean these are all the rights you have. This just means that these are the first rights that we're saying the government has no authority to violate. So there are additional rights, basically, is what the 9th Amendment says. And then the 10th Amendment says that if there's anything not mentioned in here, then it goes back to the people and to the states. And when we go to, for example, every state has a constitution too. Mm-hmm. And if we look at the Tennessee Constitution, for example, we actually have a Declaration of Rights in Article 1 of our Constitution that has way more rights listed than in the United States Constitution. If you'll go down here, we go on down to like Section 34, the General Assembly shall make no law recognizing the right of property in man. Section 35, to preserve and protect the rights of victims of crime and justice due process, victims shall be entitled to basic rights. This is a lot more than is enumerated in the United States Constitution. Now, originally, when the states were grouped together and we made the Constitution, the idea was the Constitution was to restrain and enumerate the powers of the federal government, and then each government would have their own. So before we had the 14th Amendment, if you were, say, Virginia, and you wanted to ban guns, you actually could do that in Virginia. If you wanted to have a religious state, you could have a theocratic state in Virginia. It just Congress of the United States, the federal Congress, could not make any law infringing upon that. But the actual states could. When the 14th Amendment was passed, it says that you basically no right that one person has in one territory or state, then everybody should have that in all the other states, basically. And that was the basis used to pass nationwide gay marriage. And I have a question about that. If you being able to be married in Massachusetts or Hawaii automatically means that that has to be recognized elsewhere in the states, why is it not the same for marijuana legalization? Why is it not the same for gun rights, abortion rights, whatever it may be? Why are they not uniform across the state? Now, I happen to not like that. I think each state should be able to set their laws as they choose and have a basic principle that we all agree to in the Constitution as far as what our state governments are going to do. But then I believe in a little more freedom of the states than I believe in less centralized power myself. Mm-hmm. But Tim, when I messaged you and told you the topic for tonight, you messaged me back, it's just a piece of paper, bro, which is a common, and I know you were being...
God, please specify that I was kidding.
I know you were being...
Carter County
well,
will keep me
no,
alive.
that's what I'm saying. I was getting around to that. I know you're being cheeky there.
Always.
So I know you don't actually mean that, but at the same time, there's the saying that, the Constitution has either been ineffective or... whatever the reason, it's not been efficient at stopping the government from infringing upon their liberties, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if we look at the rights that we still do exercise, for example, right now I can do this. I can get on here and say whatever the hell I want to, and the government can't stop me. And I don't think that we would have that right without it being written down and encoded into law. I think if we did not have the Constitution, we'd be more in a situation like in Australia or in England or...
in Scotland they had it, like if you say certain things online, you can be fined or arrested for it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, that people have.
Yeah, and that's in the United Kingdom. That's in a supposedly liberal Western democracy. So... David, the Magna Carta didn't help them, and their unwritten Constitution didn't help them. Right now, if the government violates my rights, I can take them to court, and I may or may not win, but I have the precedent of the First Amendment to fall back on and at least use that. Right now, I mean, we've seen gun rights actually expand for several years now, mm-hmm. since I guess basically since the repeal of the assault weapons ban. in 2004, we've kind of seen a steady, gain in gun rights. We have more and more states with constitutional carry. We have more and more states with shall issue permits instead of may issue. It's really going in the right direction. When I talk about permits, one of the things I wanted to bring up tonight, we have a sheriff's race upcoming here in Carter County. Our incumbent sheriff, Dexter Lunsford, is facing Mike Fraley and who's the other guy? Kim Birchfield. He's facing in the Republican primary this coming May, and we've also got on the Democrat primary we've got Rocky Croy. Dexter Lunsford, I kind of felt like he's been an okay sheriff. I don't see him like harassing a bunch of people with cops. I don't see him like kicking doors in for marijuana busts, but I honestly haven't paid that much attention. So maybe you can enlighten me if I'm incorrect. But
I'll give you a story offline.
Okay.
Just be anecdotal.
Well,
I did recently become a member of a group on Facebook. I think it's tested with like candidates and stuff like that.
Well, I'll show you something that's not anecdotal here.
There you go. Okay.
Tim, you may not care as much about this, and some people may not care as much about this, but this is a letter last year from the Tennessee Sheriff's Association to the House Criminal Justice Subcommittee members. Now, if you'll remember last year, we were going over the Tennessee Constitutional Carry Bill. Well, the Tennessee Sheriff's Association sent a letter to the House Criminal Justice Subcommittee, and in it they basically said, we don't think people should be able to carry guns without having a permit, and we think they should get training and only carry concealed, and basically it makes it easier for our officers, and they even said, well, maybe eliminate the permit fee, which I could see that, but really your job as a law enforcement officer, and with all due respect, it's not going to be easy. And I think we should do things to make it easier for them, but at the same time, I don't think we should infringe on people's rights to make your job easier. What would make it easiest of all would be as if you thought somebody, for example, was dealing drugs, you could just kick the door in and go, without saying anything, and go haul everybody out of there. But there's a reason we don't do that. And part of that is the Fourth Amendment, because it still does mean something, because you can get off for that if that were to happen to you. So while I appreciate the position that the police are in, I don't think that requiring a permit is going to have any effect on somebody who's intent on committing a crime with a firearm. And I don't think that concealing it is going to help any, because somebody who's going to commit a crime with a firearm is going to conceal it more than likely anyway than walk with it out in the open. But on down to the letter here, we also have one. I think the constitutional sheriff is an important thing to look at. This is a letter here. It's a blank letterhead on the constitutional sheriff that you consider your sheriff, and I intend to contact Mr. Lunsford as well as the other candidates in the sheriff race to see what they think about this. And it says, to the citizens of blank County, Tennessee, and General Assembly of State of Tennessee, this is a letter that you can have your sheriff sign. Under the Tennessee Constitution, the United States Constitution, I'm the chief law enforcement officer of this county. I took an inviolate oath to protect and defend your rights as recognized by the state and federal constitutions, and to honor and uphold the provisions of these constitutions within my jurisdiction. I take seriously any risk or effort, foreign or domestic, to violate your rights, to violate your respective constitutions, or to violate the principles on which so many have fought and died to guarantee freedom and liberty in this state and the union with which it is a part. So basically it is, he's ensuring that not only will he protect, he will not go along with any gun confiscation, but he will also oppose actively any gun confiscation in our county. So that's very important, I think, and I intend to ask those candidates if they would sign that letter. Now again, I can understand wanting to make the job of law enforcement easier where he was coming from on that letter, but at the same time, our rights come first, and that's pretty much how I feel about it. So as we go on down the Bill of Rights, we find every one of them pretty much is violated on a daily basis, as we said. Dustin, why do you What do you think is the most important amendment?
Sort of in order, really, the first.
I think so too, because ultimately, if you have a government that's behaving tyrannically, the only way that you can ever do anything about it is to let people know. And if people don't know, I don't see how that you can how you can do anything about it. So the second amendment doesn't even matter because it is to protect basically the First Amendment. But if you don't know that it needs to be protected, then how are you even going to use it? I think they're all really important, and I think more than anything, the part that I think the Bill of Rights is what we focus on, but really the rest of the Constitution that enumerates the powers of the government is kind of the more important part, because almost every department that they have on a federal level is in violation of those articles. There's no mandate for them to do that. They don't have the authority to do that. And when they say have the FDA making policy, now it's not that I have I don't like the FDA. I don't think they do a good job. It's not that I'm saying we shouldn't have something like that, although I don't think we should. But if they wanted to do that, what they should do is have Congress pass a law and create a new. They'd have to pass an amendment first, right, before they could even create that, because they don't have the authority to pass a law that creates a body that they don't have the authority to do. So we kind of missed the boat on that a long time ago, because they already do so many things that they don't have the power to do. So what do we do to take care of that? And we've lost Tim for a minute. I hope everything's all right. But my answer to that is to basically, I don't think we're going to vote our way out of the system that we've got in Washington.
No.
I think it's going to have to eventually go into default, or people just stop listening to it and start deferring to their state governments instead.
Really dissolve it on a central level and let the states become, they're pretty kind of like independent bodies.
A return to the Articles of Confederation, like where we still have a mutual defense clause, we still have trading. I don't want anybody to not be able to travel to like California or whatever, but and why do we really even have to have geographical statehood anymore? I mean, what about everything's digital now? Could we not apply to statehood for somewhere where we're more in line with the laws there? Could we not? I don't know. I just think there's a lot of different things we could do with it other than continuing to basically
perpetuate, like, if your person of choice isn't in power, it's not good until you get the other one out.
Right.
It's just like, it's neither of them are good.
Right. And we just go back and forth, and it's like so many people say, they're two wings on the same bird, two iron fists on the same giant, just kind of the I used to say that they're both an iron fist. The Democrats just wear a velvet glove over theirs. They switch back and forth and take turns trampling, different parts of your rights and expanding more and more until we're in the situation we're in now, where it kind of seems like there's no remedy with the feds. So I go back again to what we talked about in that Great Reset episode, because in order to have a Great Reset, things have to basically hit rock bottom. And that's what the World Economic Forum says. That's what the UN says. That's what a lot of these different Club of Rome, I don't want to say globalists because that word has such a stigma to it, but that's really what they are, is folks who think there should be a global control body, basically even more powerful than the United States, and again even more farther away from our being able to influence it. If your government, and think about how difficult it is even to influence your government locally here. Like when they were requiring masks in the schools, I had to go down there to the school board, several times and go before the school board and say, hey, We don't need to be doing this. And a lot of people felt that way, but I was the only one going down there. Yeah, I was not having really much effect on that, unless I encouraged other people to call or whatever. But I didn't see anybody else at the meetings, and I know a lot of people agreed with me, because eventually they got rid of it, and then nobody wants to wear the masks anymore this year. But still, just one person, it takes a lot of effort to even affect it on a local level. Now, if you look at the federal government, you really have almost no say. And then if you go out to a world government who is basically running that federal government with policy, the government must follow their policy, you basically are completely removed from running your own life. You basically have no say in it. What recourse are you going to have other than minor trivial issues that we got somebody in the chat here spamming us. Let's see. Come on, guys, get in the chat here and tell us what you think. Are we full of crap? Am I way off base? Maybe I am. I'm just rambling here about it, but it's from the heart, and I'd like to hear your perspective on it. But as we said, it is just a piece of paper, but we use it for recourse in the courts, so it does mean something.
And if you also look, especially countries that got out of the USSR after the Cold War, especially like Czechoslovakia when they became the Czech Republic, they keep modeling, and a lot of other countries, they modeled their constitutions over what we have. And I know Czech, they're following it more and more. They're actually strengthening it to give their people more freedom, since they knew firsthand some of an authoritarian regime of during Russia during that.
Well, that's what I can't understand about Europe right now, and the European Union is I mean, except for the racial aspect of it, is their goal not very, very similar to that of Germany in the 1930s? I mean, don't they want basic homogeny of Europe? All the cultures blending together into one culture that. You got all these beautiful cultural centers in Italy, in France, and in England and Spain, and they're basically being all blended together and homogenized. And we're kind of doing that over here in our states too. We're kind of I don't know. We're kind of dividing into urban and rural areas. It's kind of different worlds when you go, even in a state like Tennessee. If you go to Nashville, it's kind of more. Even though we're in Tennessee, it's more akin to a bigger city in a more progressive area. So there's the homogeny is. Everything okay, Tim?
Yeah, that's by the power of 5G. I never have any service or anything like that, and my alarm service from my home started going off. Apparently, a smoke alarm battery had died or something. But
well, I'm glad that's all it is.
So I had to drive up the road today and get service and be like, "Hey, is everything okay?"
Oh shoot!
Yeah, it's fine. But anyway, yay 5G. Anyway.
Well, we know how Tim feels about 5G. And we know how Tim feels somewhat about Elon Musk.
He did something. Did you see the satellites?
Yes, that's what we're going to talk about. I sure do.
I
have one.
Not up to par on this one.
Okay, so in Johnson City.
All the way out to, I saw people from Southwest Virginia were posting it, North Carolina out. He'll tell you. There you go. Well,
we look around 7:30 p.m. People started sending photos in to News Channel 11 here in Johnson City, WJHL, about some strange lights they were seeing in the sky. And Storm Team 11 meteorologist Tyler Ellender says they were most likely Starlink satellites from, that's not even the right video that they're showing us, WJHL, but here's a picture of it, that what people were sending.
Yeah, you can find quite a bit of good ones on just Facebook.
There's a good one.
Yeah. They said they launched 60 is what don't know if I read
Well,
it
what I
right.
read here is 48.
48. Okay.
That's a decent
They
looking ones
lost
there.
some in the atmosphere. Oh my God.
So those are some wild looking ones that look different from other satellites that I've seen. And
Spy satellites do look different.
well, let's see here. Where did I have it? There we go. We got SpaceX on December 2nd that they launched 48 Starlink satellites and 2 black sky spacecraft into orbit.
What is a black sky? What was that last part?
I don't know.
Spacecraft.
Black sky.
Black sky spacecraft.
Yeah, it says right here.
What the heck is a black sky spacecraft?
That's an interesting question. I'm not entirely sure. They deployed both of those on December 2nd. There's some pictures from that. As the thing takes off, tower falls away. There goes yet another dick
Is that
into the
Elon?
sky.
Is that why are their rockets suddenly getting more phallic looking?
I think they always were.
Like they imitate
The
well,
Falcon
Bezos is
9.
comically.
Well, you know, something we didn't mention is the Virgin Galactic one is vaginal. Yeah, if you looked at it,
No.
it looks
Not
like
from this
it
context
looks like
I
a
have.
cross section of a woman's womb.
From the inside or out?
Well, if you're like what you would see in
Spaceship, that is.
well, no, from the outside of the spaceship, looked like what you would see in an anatomical textbook.
Okay.
I'm trying to pull it up here, but I'm pretty slow. I've not been typing a lot lately. But let's see what we got here. There we go. You can see it a little bit there. Well, see, we got fallopian tubes, all that good stuff. Maybe I'm just a little crazy, but
I see wings, bruh.
yeah, I know. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you could do the same thing with like the rockets too. That's just happens to be the most aerodynamic shape.
Yeah.
Is pecker shaped, you know.
Yeah, I guess it is. Unless you're using tachyons, in which case we wouldn't have to worry about wind resistance and all that good stuff. So, what do you think about the Starlink in the first place, Tim?
Well, I wasn't aware. I mean, as soon as I saw people posting the pictures, I immediately let one. Mine was like, well, and I was like, oh, okay, it's probably Starlink. I mean, what are they for? Like,
Well,
I just revealed I had no idea what a
Okay, well,
black
Starlink
sky
is. Starlink is. I don't know if they're 5G or not, but they're basically high-speed internet that you can access from anywhere on the world.
So that's what they were launching.
Elon builds it.
48 of
Yeah,
those.
they've launched a bunch of them already. But yeah, they were launching the next
Well,
cog wagon.
we've never seen those before, so that has to
No.
be for our area.
No, that's new to me. And
Built.
they did just launch them, but there were people in the Northeast who were reporting they were seeing them. So they're out there and they're around. And basically, you sign up for Starlink, you'll be able to pick up your internet anywhere. And so, do you think that's an empowering thing, or do you think it's basically so Elon can look at the whole world and gaze upon us from high above?
Okay, well, here's how I think about that. Once upon a time, do you remember Coney 2012 by any chance?
Yeah.
It's
No,
probably like a
I-
vague memory in your head, but once upon a time, a bunch of people got together and decided they were going to catch an African warlord, and it ended up being an awareness campaign, right?
Hmm.
Not important. What I did remember from that particular piece of thing was many, many years later, the internet historian put out a video about it, and I was like, I remember all of this, but at the end of it, it's just like one of these random factoids of like stuff that happened during this whole thing. Apparently, George Clooney has a spy satellite,
What?
and so does a couple of other people. Like, you can just have one of those things. Apparently, George Clooney partnered with somebody else, like
Yeah.
some other country or something.
I mean, they just cost like a couple dozen $1 million.
That's
to
what I'm
launch,
saying. So if George Clooney has a satellite, and it turns out his satellite wasn't powerful enough to reach inside the Ugandan jungle, but he does have a satellite. So it's like if freaking George Clooney has a satellite, how many people have satellites?
Yeah. Well, Google Earth, look how long they've had the whole Earth mapped out. So,
Do they? Have you seen the giant chunks?
well,
Like where
pretty
it's
much
like-
the whole Earth.
No, it's like you'll see the Earth, and then they'll have like a black sphere
Yeah.
blacked out where it's like, this is government property.
That must be the flat side.
This is Captain Money McBags' property over here, and this is
Mhm.
George McRothschild's property, and little Swiss
Well,
cheese
I always
map.
like when that first came out. I started looking at Area 51 and like looking at all. If you go out in the Nevada desert, you can see where they've got all these nuclear craters out there. That was one of the first things that I decided to look up whenever I was.
So what part of Area 51 can do
Well,
they
not-
have parts of it blocked off?
Well, no, they have. I mean, they pretty much have it all on camera. I don't think the secret thing is Area 51 anyway. I think
I think it was like a
I think the
distraction?
secret's given away on that one. Yeah, I think that's probably where they test experimental aircraft, and yeah, they it's kind of a not really secret. You know what I mean?
I think it was like the precursor to like drones.
possible.
Because I mean, I didn't think it back then. Because I mean, well, I'm not that smart to go. Oh, we're probably gonna have those one day. But looking back at a lot of those old UFO videos, they look like big drones.
Mhm.
Like you see how like kids use the drones today. Like you looking back at just giant versions of them, unless they were tricking his eyes and they weren't near as far away as he thought they were.
Well, you know when you and Jonathan
He
were
being
here,
Lazar, I guess.
right? When you and Jonathan were here a couple weeks ago, and Jonathan described his seeing the triangular craft when he was a child, that sounded like he said like the TR-3B. That's been a declassified program. It's an aircraft that I think it was the Air Force that actually made, but it was out. That thing's been around since the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
They just admitted it. They just admitted it that it was a thing 3 or 4 years ago. But I've also heard of people seeing big, triangular craft that were way larger than standard aircraft. Like
Lots over Phoenix. Do you remember that one?
yeah.
Politician got in trouble coming out in an alien suit with the rubber hand and all that.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Do you think that was one giant craft, or was it a series of crafts? Is what I was
It
asking.
looked like a series to me, but a lot of people did say it was one, but I don't know. It didn't look like it to me.
Mothership theory. I have this theory that the only way UFOs can, if UFOs are real, this is the little addendum after, if they're real, then that's where Alex Jones' breakaway civilization is. It's up there, it has to be.
Well, I had the theory, kind of that when I watch all these ancient alien shows and things like that, they basically always come around to these things coming from outer space. But unless like the Anunnaki myth or legend or however you want to call it, whatever Zechariah Sitchin's translations, whatever that actually is.
What'd you call it, Goff? You're the pro.
I wouldn't say pro, but
I don't know if you call it a myth or a legend or
Babylonian
origin story,
Yeah, right.
whatever.
Sumerian.
Sumerian. There you go.
Yeah. Except for that, most of them don't actually say that they're extraterrestrial. Most of them
Well,
just say
Anunnaki just
they're
means
in
those
the
who come
sky.
from above, or sky people.
Well, I think that specified the actual planet though, and that they came from that actual planet. But a lot of these other ones, they just say they come from the sky. So it kind of makes me think, what if there was a human technological society, the remnants of which traveled around, to try to preserve some of that knowledge and try to see what else was going on in the world until eventually there was nothing
Like
left of it.
survivors of the cataclysm.
Yeah, until
so to
everybody
speak.
basically forgot how to operate the equipment. The equipment all broke down. And,
Try again. You seen that? I could go either way with it. I actually tend to, as much as I like to not believe any of it, I really like to lean on the side that, I don't know, I guess maybe it is, okay, I'm going to go with this one. I'm going to go full Trigun with it because it actually makes more sense that maybe we reached an advanced civilization, shot our elites up in the air, things went to shit, and then they came back down and went, we're God! And that's exactly what Elon and those tricksters are about to do with their rockets. They want to get up to Mars and then watch the Earth collapse in about 2,000 more years. I'm giving myself a nice window to die.
Maybe they're going home.
Well, that was my first theory, that Elon's trying to go home.
Yeah.
But that goes with the whole theory, like where they planet hop. You ever seen that? Oh. You have to believe it for it to be
Well,
to be entertained, I guess.
Ronald Reagan said basically something like think how quick this world would come together if we faced an outside
I had
threat.
that thought today about what if that was just like viruses, like if they found a way to, like if they gave us a scapegoat in the form of he who we shouldn't name, or I don't know, the country that shouldn't. If we scapegoat everybody and all of a sudden we just have health is our new crisis.
Yeah.
Isn't that aliens?
Yeah,
Isn't
it
that,
pretty much it's the same mechanism, and everybody had the concern that that uniting that we would do basically would come at the expense of individual rights.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I guess if you're against a true external threat, like something like a physical kinetic war with another civilization, at that point, I'm sure sometimes you really do have to kind of put those rights to the side for the survival of the species. In some situations, for example, if I don't have a specific example. I don't want to get into specific examples, but basically, if the species doesn't survive, then you don't have any rights anyways. So, basically, that's the idea that I think that Reagan had, or what that would come out to is basically we would all the different countries would get together and your individual rights would be gone because of this outside threat. And like you said, viruses kind of tend to fit that same bill because it's an outside threat that individually, what are you going to do to stop it? And if we all have to come together as a society and all follow a set protocol that, basically the UN or the World Health Organization or the CDC or whoever it is decides, basically that's at the expense of your rights. And if you look at what's happening in Australia right now, I bet you they wish they had a Second Amendment. I bet you they wish they had a First Amendment. Because for those who don't know, Australia is right now they are flying out into the desert. They're kidnapping Aboriginal people. They are shooting them up with drugs and holding them in quarantine facilities. Even they had a big story on the Australian news the other night about these fugitives who had escaped from a quarantine camp. And they were teenagers who they had gone picked up out of the desert and forced them into a camp because they had a exposure to a positive case.
And they tested
Meanwhile,
negative.
they were negative. So
But I thought it was funny in the story, because we found out that I guess at the exact same time because we sent it to each other. In the news, I guess what do we call it, the news report, they're like, it's just unacceptable behavior and all this, and the whole time the way they're talking about these people is it's just like some redneck, just criminal Australian people, and it turns out to be tribe people, like Aboriginal, went out in there and got not your people kind of, you know what I mean? Like it's that took it to a creepier level, I guess. I guess it would be if we started going on to the tribal lands like up at Cherokee and we started close the casino up, you're done.
Rounding them up and force
we know this isn't
them.
federal land, but you know what? Get your close it up shop, you know.
And that's exactly what they're doing. In Germany, you've seen Austria, you've seen the videos, I'm sure, of the cops beating the shit out of people for being out of their house at the wrong time, for not wearing a mask, or for being out protesting. So if you even organize a protest in Australia, if you even get on Facebook and say, hey, let's all meet and say that we don't agree with this, let's peacefully protest this policy, they will come to your house and they'll take you away in a paddy wagon before you ever get a chance to do it. It's happening right now in Australia.
And they have their military using against their civilians.
Yeah, and why is the United States government not speaking out against this? That's right. That's a new aspect. That's new as of last week. The military is now driving around in vans and picking people up and taking them to quarantine camps. And they're showing, even the Australian press, Quillette, for example, it used to be a decent publication, or it seemed like a decent publication. Now they're basically, Claire Lehman of Quillette is backing the Australian government and saying that there's nothing wrong with it, and that people who are saying that it's a bad thing to take people and lock them up in camps for an indefinite amount of time until the government decides they're ready to let them go, that's okay, and that there's nothing wrong with that, and it's just done for the public good. And if we look at what Australia's been doing, they've been locked down and have had a high vaccination rate all summer, and what more do they want? I mean, when we started talking about all this, they were saying 60 to 70% of people vaccinated, we would have herd immunity. And I think a lot of places are well over that, but they're still locking down. They're still forcing people to mask, and they're still forcing vaccinations. From what I heard, Israel.
Well, I mean, like out of the States, is it Vermont? Probably.
Vermont has the highest, and right now they actually have the highest one of the highest rates of cases and hospitalizations and death in the country right now.
Wow.
The Midwest and New England are both getting hit really hard right now. And I keep seeing stories on local news about how our area is doing so much worse than other areas of Tennessee or other areas of Virginia. But then when you look at their case totals, it's like, oh, we had 116 deaths statewide or something like that. And like, that's really, or 116 in our area, and over a month or something like that. Like, there's 500,000 people in the area, so if you compare it to the rest of the state, then yeah, it might look like more, but there's really not that many in the state right now. And the same with Virginia; they're just really not handling it.
More in the state. Well, actually, there's a lot of. Well, you're talking about cases. My mind was taking it in a different direction.
Well, they're talking. I'm talking about deaths. Actually,
Yeah.
what they're
Totally
saying.
different.
But then if you also look at the obesity rate in our area versus other areas of the
I
state.
would think our obesity rate's probably worse than.
That's what I'm saying.
A lot of
Our
places,
obesity, you can't necessarily just say, oh, that's because our area has a 40% vaccination rate compared to 60, 70 in other areas of the state. But our area has a lot of people with a lot of poor lifestyles. I mean, it's,
I'm not overweight, but my diet is pretty awful. I've been trying to work on it ever since the whole lockdown thing. I don't know. At first it became a health thing. Now I think it's becoming like a boredom project. Like, well, this is probably bad for me. Let's see if I can cut it out to spite my body. But I have be trying to do better. But I do. Well, did we talk about this? It's just a theory. Maybe it could be bunk for anybody that's listening. I had the Rona at the same time as the woman in my house had the Rona, wife for the lay folk. We got it at the same time. She had, I guess what would be like flu-like symptoms, very typical of what they were saying COVID had. She had the loss of smell. That was gone for a good while. But I didn't have any of those symptoms at all. The only thing I felt like I was on a lot of Adderall for about 4 or 5 days. Just felt like I was on uppers. I've never had the crack cocaine or the pure stuff, but I've had pharmaceutical stuff like Ritalin and Adderall, and that's what it felt like. If you take a lot of that, just couldn't come down for like 4 days. Now,
I think you're the first person I've talked to that said that.
okay, well, I'm gonna piece some little blues clues. I want to show you some clues here. I had this theory at the time when I was sick and was wondering what was going on, that maybe, whether it be a bioweapon or not, maybe it's just a virus, that it attacks whatever you're genetically weakest to. Because all the men in my family that don't die of some other lascivious thing like cancer, they get weak. We drop by heart attack. My granddad dropped by heart attack. My dad had a stent put in at 57. I know that's how I'm going to go. It's kind of like the Cyclops. I know how I'm going to go. It's just when. But yeah, it felt like my heart rate was just crazy up the top. And that's not her. Her family doesn't have heart disease and stuff.
Well,
so
for my son, who's a teenager, he was born prematurely. His lungs weren't fully formed.
okay.
And when he had it, he had a cough for months. Couldn't shake that cough. He had to go back and get steroids. He had to take antibiotics and steroids, and he had to go back for another dose of steroids. So it seemed like that would go with your theory too.
I had a fever for 2 days, lost my spell, and had diarrhea for a week.
So that's what I actually had. Well, I don't know if it was exactly like that, but that's like typical COVID, right?
I had
typical symptoms
Besides
with
the
it.
diarrhea.
I had a
I had a
little
little
shortness
for a
of
while.
breath when I had it, and I would take Zicam dissolvable tablets, and as long as I took those every 2 hours, I wouldn't have any symptoms. But if I stopped taking it, I feel like I had a hard time starting to breath. Yeah, like I get all my breath out, and then I have a hard time starting to get it back in. As long as I took those Zicam tablets, I didn't notice any symptoms, and none of the rest of my family got sick when I had it. It was actually, let's see, I had it in August of last year. They didn't get it till April of this year, and when they got it in April, I didn't get it. And I've probably had 10 freaking COVID tests since I actually had it, and everyone's been negative. But I've seen I've had a lot of sinus infections since and colds and stuff since then. And normally I don't get stuff
I
like
think
that.
maybe made you more susceptible.
Maybe I don't know. I take a lot of vitamins and supplements and stuff, and
My
I
sinus infections
try
have
to eat
been
pretty good.
a little worse than what they have in years
You
past.
still work in retail?
Mhm.
I would think you'd be more susceptible to us, because bam, I remember when I worked frozen, especially not just in grocery, but I actually worked in frozen. I stayed sicker. I literally would get a sinus infection or some form of a cold every 3 weeks. It was maddening, and I didn't think. I thought about it then. I just kind of blew it off. I thought it was the temperature, like an idiot, because it was where everything in the frozen section you have to grab with a hand. So you're literally shaking grabby hands with everybody that comes in that store that opens that door.
Mm-hmm.
So take some vitamins, my man. I think you're more susceptible than us.
Even though it normally doesn't.
Well, just exposure is what I'm saying. Like, well, I don't know. Maybe the herd thing works on you. I've been trying to get a lot of sunlight, even though I don't have a lot of access. I don't have a lot of contact with people, really anymore.
I do, and I see hundreds of people a month. My job, I go under people's houses at my job. I get into nasty stuff. I try to wear a respirator most of the time, but sometimes, you'll just forget, or it's inconvenient to go get it. So you stick your head under a house real quick and get a whiff of some nasty dust and get a sinus infection or something like that. I think that's probably what's been leading to mine. But it does seem like it's been worse since I had COVID. Because I used to, maybe get sick once a year, and I've probably had 4 or 5 little colds or sinus infections in the last year. That's very abnormal.
I've always been prone to sinus infections. I usually get, which still I'm in the number that I normally get. I usually get like 2 a year normally. Usually at the start of winter, and then almost at the end, and then sort of like the allergy stuff. Sometimes we'll set one, but
This may be a dumb question. What kind of heat do you have at your house? Is it
It's-
electric or is it
it's
gas?
a heat pump. It's
Is it gas or is it electric?
no, it's electric.
Electric. Okay. My sinuses go absolutely nuts every year around this time of year. I'm starting to think it's when the heat kicks on.
That's when mine
You
first
think I don't
starts.
know, maybe it's where all the crap settles down in the.
In
I don't
the-
know. That
in your
doesn't make any
lungs.
sense either because it's the same ducts that the air's blowing through. So maybe it's the other.
Well, when you're
Let's ask him. You see a lot of that stuff.
well,
don't you?
when your heat first kicks on for the year, when your auxiliary heat cuts on, it has dust on it.
You
Where
think
it's
that's what it
built
is?
up, and it burns that dust, so you smell it when you
And
first turn the
the
heat
heat's
on.
dry, so it dries
Yeah, that too.
everything in your
Oh yeah, I
sinus
can't breathe
cavity.
for like 2 weeks when that gas heat first kicks on.
Yeah, with our electric heat too. When it regularly comes on, you just have basically it pulls the heat from the ambient air outside and pulls that air inside. But then whenever it's too cold for it to do that, or if you're asking it to heat up more than 2 or 3 degrees at a time, it'll kick on an electric coil in your indoor unit. This is just with a split system, which is the most common system you see, and that actually will get dust on it, and you can smell it burning off when you first start running it through there. But I don't know how that would give you more sinus infections because
Well, I was trying to
the air's still running through the same area.
I was trying to
The
figure out
humidity
whether or
drops,
not.
everything's so dry.
I was trying to figure out where or not natural gas
Mm.
doesn't. Maybe natural gas doesn't burn as clean as they say it is. But I'll have to do a little bit independent research on mine. That just hit me when you said your sinuses get tore up too. I was like, maybe he has propane. Maybe Hank Hill's been shilling some inferior gas.
I
After
gotta tell
all.
you, man, Hank makes propane seem pretty appealing, but I'm not a propane grill kind of guy. I'm a charcoal man through and through.
Well, if I heated my house with charcoal,
I wouldn't want to heat the
very
house with
inefficient.
charcoal, but I wouldn't mind to have propane appliances and heating. That'd be all right. I like gas. I've had a gas before.
Cost-wise, it's been. I agree with it. What were we talking about right as I left? Because I completely
Well,
forgot.
we were
'cause
still on the
my
Constitution,
alarm was going
and
off.
yeah, I forget exactly where we were. I was just kind of rambling, but basically, the whole idea was we want to keep our government close to us so we can have an effect on it and not have several layers of administration over top of us to where we can't actually reach to the level that affects us. So basically, we don't want the federal government or the United Nations making the rules for us here in Carter County, because not only do they not know what life is like in Carter County and how to basically govern us. We have the right to govern ourselves, and we do know how to do all that. We don't need this outside control, and I really feel like if our people here and in other counties and states in the country had been free to find out what works best to deal with this pandemic instead of following exactly what the CDC and the World Health Organization says, we probably would have had a lot more innovation, and we probably would have had a lot more luck dealing with it, because we would find things that work, and like things that, like for example, like when Florida does something and the whole country kind of looks at them, and if it works well, then the CDC basically says, oh, that's just because this, and they kind of discount it. But when it doesn't go right, they say, oh, well, Florida is a terrible example, and kind of it's either the CDC or Florida is kind of the only two options. Whereas if each state health department
is the lowest right now, pretty much.
Yeah.
What now?
Yeah, and
Florida does have the lowest.
Florida doesn't have
lowest
restrictions on
cases or
on,
anything. There's
and they're a huge state. They got a high population. They don't have restrictions. But guess what?
It's a very misunderstood state too.
It is. And here's another thing. Like 60, 70% of the people in Florida are vaccinated. So even when you leave people free to make their choice, they're still making the choice that a lot of the government wants them to make. It's that you talk to people into, you give them the information, they can make up their own mind. If you leave people free to do it, that's the best medicine in my opinion. And Tim, I hope you're not getting the clothes.
No, I drank a big swing of that and it went down the wrong way. What do you think about DeSantis? Is that how you say his name? DeSantis.
I don't know a lot about DeSantis. I like some of the things he does, but I feel like he is trying to protect his citizens from overreaches by the federal government. And I like to call our governor Bill Lee DeSantis light, because he kind of sees what DeSantis does, and about 2-3 months later he does the same thing, but not quite as good.
Pretty true. Yeah, pretty accurate.
So, I was actually going to we were supposed to have Nuga Jack on tonight, and Nuga Jack, among the 3 topics that we were going to talk, he was going to go into Bill Lee's connection to the Communist Chinese Party, and
Bill Lee has connection. Okay.
According to Nuga Jack. Now, I've
I
not
guess
looked
we should
into
wait
it. So,
for Mr. Nuga.
Yeah, we're going to have him on.
Case.
We have
stuff about that smart city.
We're going to talk about Chattanooga, the smart city, and we're going to talk about a company called Maximus Incorporated that basically inserts itself throughout the chain of Medicare, Medicaid, vaccines, the health and welfare system. They basically administrate all the call centers, the information gathering, a lot of the payment processing. If you've heard of the English company of Serco, they're very similar to Serco. What Serco does for the administrative state and the military state and the financial state and the energy state, this is kind of what Maximus appears to do for the welfare and health state in America. So Nuga Jack is going to tell us about some of that.
Okay.
He's a former DuPont chemical worker, and he's a self-described former big pharma operator. Now he's doing research on Twitter, or he's posting his research on Twitter, and he's come on with some very interesting stuff. As I said on one of the other videos, he did a really good thread on the Nashville bombing on election night last year. So a lot of crazy stuff was in that building that a lot of people probably didn't know about.
In the building?
That had to do with the election and national security infrastructure. Was where that RV exploded on the other side.
In front of it?
Yeah, on the other side of the wall that RV blew up on, there was like the main cables for all these lines that went throughout the southeast. And whoever blew that thing up knew what they were doing, according to Nuga's research, and it makes a lot of sense to me. So his research on Maximus has been very interesting too, because I'd never heard of this company, and they play such a big part in the administration of all the health and welfare money in our country, in our state. So I look forward to hearing about that from Nuga Jack, and I think we have him tentatively scheduled for the 19th. We're also we've got an episode coming up on Al Capone and Little Chicago and moonshining. Now, I've about got the research done with that. We're also going to have some guests. We're going to have Tiny Hillbilly from, well, I hope we are. We've invited Tiny Hillbilly on from East Tennessee Distillery out there in Piney Flats. So we're hoping he'll come and join us and talk about moonshining, and along with Wilbur, who did this artwork right here. That's a print called Archaic Knowledge that he did. We really like Wilbur, and we've got his stickers for our bands, and we've got posters from him and all kinds of good stuff. So check him out. I think he's East Tennessee Design. I think that's his company. He's had a lot of different designs or different titles for his businesses over the year. But if you look up the Art of Kilb, that's for one that he has it under. Poor Devil Graphics. I think East Tennessee Designs is what he's using right now. But he's over on the campus at the East Tennessee Distillery. And I also like to support the guys at supplymunitions.com over there on the Piney Flats Distillery. So you can get your moonshine and your bullets at the same location.
Can't join those properties, I bet.
No, they're on the same property.
You probably couldn't have joined them in the same building.
Oh, no, probably not.
ATF
Probably not. They're on the same property, but they are separate. And you definitely don't want to go partake in the moonshine and then, do anything with your firearm. Would not be advisable or legal. So wouldn't recommend that, but you should definitely check them out. They got a lot of stuff. I know, Dustin, you like to carry 380, is that right?
Mostly, yeah. It's easy.
380 is a really popular caliber, and it's also a lot of times really hard to find ammunition for, especially reasonably priced. These guys have actually, and I rarely ever see Full Metal Jacket 380. I almost always see defensive rounds, and they're really expensive. But they actually are carrying 380 Full Metal Jacket, reasonably priced. Defensive rounds reasonably priced for 9, 40, 45, whatever rifle rounds you need for hunting season. I mean, they got them all, and they're better prices than just about anybody on the internet, and you don't have to pay for shipping. So. And they do have online orders, and you can order online and pick up at the shop. So, supplymunitions.com. I really like those guys.
And their 30 cal stuff has been very nicely priced.
Yeah.
I haven't bought ammunition in 3 years. Only have a 9. I like a 380 though. I think I like the way a 380 fires. If I bought a 380, which I have contemplated, I would have to get one of those extenders for the butt because I just don't like they feel
the
stubby.
short grip.
They're very short, and but I like the way they fire though. They feel better when they fire than a 9. Oh, shut up.
I like 9mm better than 380.
You like a 9 better?
380 it's easier for a carry situation because the weapon can be more compact and it's not going to be digging on you as much. It's lighter.
Yeah, I mean that's what I've heard everyone say because I'm not a gun person. But I've heard a lot of people say, well, 380 is specifically for pocket or whatever. I actually, I feel like I can aim a 380 and a 9 about the same, but I just feel like that little extra less recoil on the 380 allows me to just hit better. And I feel if I hit somebody with a 380 or a 9, I'm not trying to kill an intruder anyway, but I feel like I could hit the target better with the 380. And my whole point is not to kill somebody.
To stop the threat.
But I don't want him with, I feel like if I hit him with what is that, little 22, I feel like they're going to laugh at me. So I feel like
I doubt they'd laugh.
I can't go below a 380, so.
That's generally where you want to start your carry caliber.
Is the what?
I mean, 380.
380, yeah.
Which, that's sort of the thing. It's like what you shoot best, what you're the most comfortable with is what you should use. It's like if you feel you like it better and you shoot it as good or better, that's what you should use.
I'll make no mistake, if this was like, I figured out was like, I'm getting the 9 because if this is like to the death or something. I mean, if it's just me carrying defensive target, whatever, I actually just like the 380 better because I feel like just that little less recoil, I can hit the target better.
Personally, I like a 9 because I can carry a 15 round 9mm with a 4-inch barrel, and right here, nobody can see it. The mid-size compact handgun mitigates a lot of that recoil versus if you had like a 3-inch barrel. something a little bit smaller, like a 3-inch, 13 round, like a Springfield Hellcat or something like that, that's going to be a lot more snappy. But if you get closer to a full size pistol on that 9, the recoil is going to be a lot less of a factor, although it still will. But like when you start getting up into 10 millimeter though, that's a little much. I've shot one of those Glock long slides. I think it's a 40. It's like 6-inch barrel, 10 millimeter. Now that thing, still being such a large pistol, it still has a heck of a lot of recoil on it. I can't shoot it worth a crap.
I've tried a couple of people's different pistols. I like the way a revolver is.
Yeah.
Only because you feel kind of like Dirty Harry. But can you imagine even if you're in a defensive setting, here you are, whatever it may be, you're hiding behind a Volkswagen Beetle and you've been pinned down, or you're in the bedroom, wherever, and you have a revolver to defend yourself. Dude, my head was about to explode, and I still had the thingies on. So I mean, I can only imagine if you took aim, pow. How does your eardrums ever work again?
Inside, it would really blow them out, man. It would really.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like you go to defend your house and you take a shot and boom, and all of a sudden you're deaf and you miss the guy. You know.
Which is why, sort of, if you go with infringements, why you NFA stuff, like why suppressors are.
Yeah.
Are
illegal.
suppressors illegal?
They're not illegally. They're just regulated. You have to pay like.
So explain that.
Pay $200 and you can have a suppressor.
But you have to wait for them to say you can.
Yeah.
What is that? Okay, so at the process of, I have a, it's a G something, G6, like a G7.
G3, G2C.
Yeah, it's one of those G2, it's a Talon or something. Taurus, that's what
Taurus,
it's
it's a.
That's what my name is.
24/7
G2. Yeah. If I wanted tomorrow to go get a silencer for it, what do I have to do?
Well, preferably on that particular gun, knowing it's like you don't have a threaded barrel, so you have to get a different barrel put on it to thread the suppressor.
But if you had one that you'd have to fill out a paper with the ATF, and then wait on them to approve it, and pay $200.
The gun shop?
You can do it at not every gun shop, because they have to have special stuff to do like NFA items, which you would have to go fill out like I forget the name of the form, but you have to fill it out, pay the $200, and then wait in between sometimes a month to 6-8 months, depending on what they wanted to do, and then you can't touch that until it comes back.
Is that because I'm going to try to play not anti-gun? I own a gun. I'd like to own a couple more, but I'm not your I guess no matter who we stream to around here, they're either going to be one or the other. But most people I would suspect around here would be okay with firearms. But most people I think around here might actually be like me, where we are around. I don't know all this stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I think it would be interesting to put that stuff out there for normal people who are okay with guns. I would never have a reason to buy a silencer unless it was just for I want to fire just a quad gun. So do you think some of that waiting period is, why the hell is this person ordering a silencer? Should we maybe make sure he's not trying to take out his boss or something, and that's why the way? But I mean, I know that sounds stupid, but that's the argument they're going to make. Me, I'm sitting there going, if somebody's that deranged, then they're probably going to take the time to think in advance to order their silencer ahead of time.
I think maybe a lot of it has to do with the idea of silencers that we have from movies, where we think that you can, put a silencer on a P38 and beep, beep, and nobody's going to hear it. If you put a silencer on a pistol, it's still going to be fairly loud unless it's a 22 pistol. You're not going to
You can do certain combinations with certain baffling links and like subsonic ammo. You can get them relatively quiet.
Is it similar to like a paintball gun?
Still louder than that.
Is it louder than that?
You can still
That's still
hear
pretty
them.
loud. Like a paintball gun, I wouldn't be alarmed if I heard that going off, but it's still loud enough where you.
I'll tell you, the only one that I've heard approaching like movie silencer is a 300 Blackout with a suppressor and subsonic ammo. Now that sucker's pretty quiet. You don't need ear protection with it, but I mean, you're still going to.
I mean, that's the whole point of a suppressor, is to take it to where you don't have to have.
It's not to stop enemies or assailants
from hearing. It basically keeps you from going deaf.
Yeah,
well, that's what I was.
If you
that's why I would say it's a perfect thing for like a home defense, because you wake up in the middle of the night and you need to use it.
That's my full circle. Yeah.
Okay, especially if you're any louder caliber. Like, say, even if you're protecting your house with like a shotgun or a rifle, you fire that, little room like this, you're gonna like blow your eardrums out and you'll be bleeding out.
Especially
your
if
ears.
you're looking at something like a lot of people have an AR pistol for their home defense
Which-
because it's compact.
They're low.
That stands for automatic rifle pistol, right?
Shut up, Tim. It doesn't. I mean, but an AR pistol in a short barrel is super loud because you still got a lot of that concussion coming out, burning still coming out the end of the barrel, and that's one of the reasons that pistols are a lot louder. That has time to travel down the barrel in a longer barrel and kind of dissipate a little more. But you if you were to fire your handgun in a self-defense situation in your home, yeah, like you said, it would deafen you. And if you were to fire something like an AR pistol or an AR with a big bird cage, or not bird cage, but one of those muzzle brakes that vents out the side, that are just devastatingly loud if you're standing next to them, that would kill your ears to have to do that.
Let alone.
So that was my really long full circle I was trying to get there. Is the only purposes you have for a silencer that people think is James Bond.
Yeah.
But really, they're not that quiet. I've heard them. They're not that quiet to begin with. I mean, they're not near as loud as firing a 9mm off, but in my mind, the perfect setting for a silencer would be for that, because a 22 is not going to make you deaf. It's still loud, but it's not going to make you deaf. But that 9mm is unbearable, and I'm not going to use a 22 for home defense. If I wake up in the middle of the night, 22, I'm murdering that person. I'm sorry if that person is in my bedroom, and but for a 9mm,
It's not murder.
do you understand what I'm saying though? Like, it's like that's a weird gray sort of area to put a silencer in, that it's only supposed to be used for assassinations, when really the best use for a silencer would be for every gun, so we don't go deaf.
Well, yeah,
because
and
you're not protecting
it's like-
your house. I'm not going to take the time to put my noise suppressing headset on before I go after the guy in my house.
Well, in England, they actually have, England's very restrictive on firearms. You can own a couple of shotguns and some 22s.
A
and,
blunderbuss.
It depends. I've actually, I don't know about now, but I know a couple years ago, it's like you had to go through extra hoops, but you could actually get other things.
Yeah,
just not in near any urban areas.
Well, you could get more, but your general person who I think you do still have to go through some red tape. You can get firearms for target practice, and that's generally 22s. Most of the gun collectors I see from England have mostly 22s, with a couple of shotguns and maybe a couple of bolt-action rifles, and there may be other ways to get that. But what I was getting around to is, if you go to a gun range in England and you shoot your 22s without a suppressor, the other guys there are going to get pissed off at you, because they use them regularly for
Most other
recreational
countries have no restrictions at all over suppressing devices. Like,
Makes
it's like
sense.
you can
There's no
walk
reason
in.
to.
It's like you go through. If they say you can have it, you can just go and buy it off the shelf, just like your ammo.
So it's kinda crazy
It's
how-
no regulations at all.
Now we have we still have a ton of regulations on firearms, but compared to other countries, what we are, the government doesn't prevent us from owning, but they, we have so many more options. But then with silencers and suppressors, a lot harder to do that, and that
A
gets,
lot of countries don't have stuff for like SBRs and stuff like that.
yeah. Well,
They're
like
like,
France,
oh,
for
you-
example, you can own a SBR, short-barreled rifle, for those who don't know. So go ahead. Sorry, Dustin, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's cool.
But like France, for example, you can own an SBR just as easy as you can own a regular firearm, which there are hoops to jump through in France to own any firearm, but they don't differentiate between a rifle
of the
barrel
barrel.
being over 16 inches. Yeah, for example, for those who don't know, if you have, like, say, I have a 10-inch barreled AK pistol. If I were to stick a stock on that, it would suddenly become illegal. If I did not pay my $200 and fill out my Form 1 and wait on ATF to give me the approval, and while I do that, I actually have to have the components to make the thing a rifle out of my home. So I can't even have them together, even if I didn't put the gun together. But I can have a pistol with a brace that's even more concealable, and that's perfectly fine. But I can have it without a brace at all. That's even more concealable and less controllable. So I don't think that the people making the regulations here necessarily know a lot about what they're doing.
They don't.
Or the regulations would probably make a lot more sense, unless the whole idea is just to keep us from owning them altogether.
It's like a poor tax.
Yeah.
If you have money, like you say, it's like you can have fully automatic things if you have the money.
Poor tax. That's what I call speeding tickets from state troopers.
Yeah. Well, there was, I can't remember who, maybe it was George Carlin. I can't remember who famously said this, but basically, fines are just a way for the rich people to get away with whatever they want.
Well, yeah, we talked about that last
Yeah,
week. Yeah.
yeah.
And then somebody said it was a Final Fantasy quote too. Yeah, if you put a price tag on the crime, then aren't you just making it
legal for rich
It's
people.
legal for, if you make enough money, you can do anything legally. Yeah. What do you think? I know this is an odd one. Not really an odd one, I guess, just specific of guns. Like, right now you can't own an automatic weapon, right?
Yeah, you can.
You can?
You just have to pay enough money, and it's easier if you do it through a business. You can, you have to have a machine gun license, basically. And
How much does that cost to own a machine gun?
well, to buy the machine gun, as Dustin was saying, it's going to run you tens of thousands of dollars. Even to buy something like an AK that you trade a chicken for it in the Middle East somewhere. You could literally trade a couple of chickens for an AK, because there are just so many of them out there. The value on them is not really that high because the communists just made millions and millions of them. But if I buy an AK, not even an automatic one, if I buy a semi-automatic civilian version of AK right now, I'm going to pay about $1,000 for that.
If it's automatic, though, how much?
I mean, you're looking probably $10,000 to $15,000
For just the gun, or
Yeah.
plus all the extra hoopla you got to go through to get that gun?
It depends on. There's a big varied thing. If you go like the pre-86 bans, any weapon that was in production before 86, you can pretty much just throw out the dollars and get them.
But there's a certain amount of them on the market in the U.S., so the prices of
why-
them are super high.
Like I saw, God, this is probably like a year and a half ago. One of the last times I saw one that in this general area, a person put an actual M16A1 up, which it was a pretty good deal for $13,000.
That's one of the first guns I ever fired was an M16. You know where I fired it at? PTL. Anybody familiar with PTL is? It was a Christian theme park in North Carolina called Praise the Lord Ministries. I think it was Jimmy Swaggart. I don't remember. The guy that's selling the buckets. Who's that guy? Selling the big giant Rapture buckets.
I don't know.
You know what I'm talking about?
I've heard that. What'd you say?
Is it Jimmy
Swagger's
Swaggart or
name?
is I get these guys mixed up. It's the one that has the Tina Fey. Is it Tina Fey? We'll come back to this. Anyway, my whole point was that once upon a time there was a Christian theme park in North Carolina called PTL, and for some reason, when I was not young enough to be in elementary school, I was allowed to drive a car on just a track, and it was like, blah, blah, and it scared the crap out of my brothers. And then they gave me a gun that went, I didn't, bah, 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 right? It was 3 shots. It was an M16. But I was so little, the instructor had to like squeeze it for me.
Teaching you right.
So don't worry, folks. It's not there anymore. Oh wait, it is. The gun range probably is.
Well, you can go down to Gatlinburg to Sevierville right now, and you can shoot a machine gun for $100. And that's actually a pretty
Okay,
good
well,
deal.
if you walked in
They
with
let
your
you-
6-year-old,
they-
would they be let?
Well, I
Would they
mean,
give it to you?
you'd probably have to do it with them. You do hear tragedies every now and then from people who give too small of a child a firearm that he has no business having. Like they give a freaking 10-year-old or 8-year-old a MAC-10 up here in Kentucky fully automatic, and it's a gun like this big that's fully automatic. The kid killed himself with it. I mean, obviously you got to have sense not to do stuff like that, but I don't think there's anything wrong with teaching small children to shoot as long as you do it properly.
It's not that I have an issue with teaching kids to shoot or any of those sorts of things. My issue is PTO is also like specifically the guy that I keep referring to. I can't remember his name. We'll come back to it later. he's also connected to like end time stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like they were teaching, oh, here's some good old wholesome ammunition for
Right,
that. It was
it's
always
like-
spanning, you better teach them early, wink, wink.
Yeah.
The rapture's coming, wink,
David
wink.
Koresh
You know?
kinda
Yeah.
deal. Well, looks like we're getting towards the end here.
Towards the end.
We've been on about an hour and 20 or so, but we're gonna do a dedicated.
Y'all have.
Yeah. We're gonna do a dedicated firearms episode coming up. Hopefully, we'll get out to the range a little bit and get some range time on a few different weapons.
You won't see anything impressive from me, but I can shoot.
Well, yeah, we'll be impressed from you. We'll get out there and.
Shopping! Shopping!
Revolver ocelot over here.
Yeah.
Be screwing around and dang clip fly in my face.
But yeah, we'll get out on the range and try out some shotguns and rifles. And,
bullet casing. I'm sorry, I said clip, man. Terminology, I'll toss words around like they have no meaning because I'm from Carter County, but I know if anybody's going to call me on anything, if I said magazine, what I meant was bullet casing, somebody was going to call me out on that one. I'll let you back on your end.
Oh,
I had
no,
to, I had to insert that before somebody about lost their mind with me. So, anyway.
Well, if you start getting into the terminology thing with guns and gun people, you could be there all night. Especially, like you said, the whole clip magazine thing.
Yeah.
A lot of guys will give you a lot of hell about that.
I won't lie.
Yeah,
I like terminology.
I do too, and I like to use the right words for things. So most of the time, I try to do that.
I'm sure there's a quote in there somewhere that can't calling things, beginning of wisdom begins with calling things by their proper noun or name or whatever. See how badly I effed that one up? The beginning of wisdom begins with calling things by their proper term. I'm thinking that's Einstein, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, that's one of those scientific people. What do they know? Go ahead.
They know science. We want to thank you for joining us. It's been a little bit of a rambler of an episode. We did have to come up with a new topic because we rescheduled. Our guest wasn't able to be on tonight, so we'll get him on in the near future. We're looking at the 19th for Nougat Jack, and we're hoping to have. We've sent invitations out to the folks over there at the distillery in East Tennessee Graphic Design to come over and have a talk with us about the moonshine and all that good stuff, and I found some interesting things out about Al Capone and Little Chicago. So there's a not a lot of information out there, but if you dig a little bit, you can kind of find other people's information and kind of piece it together and see what you can come up with.
I guess a spoiler on that one. Have you heard anything about the moonshine, the underground tunnels in Johnson City?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. If anybody doesn't know about that, I had a guy, a homeless man at the bus station, tell me that one night. We was leaving mid-city back when it was open past midnight because it wasn't dangerous or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I just got to talking to a homeless guy, and he was telling me, moonshine was running around here, and I was like, yeah. And the more I got to listen to him, I was like, actually, I don't know what this guy's talking about. He's actually starting to sound pretty interesting. Turns out he started talking about a series of underground tunnels that he could show you. Of course, he's a homeless guy. I guess he just stumbled across them. But apparently Johnson City used to be called Little Chicago, and there's quite a bit of history to it.
Yeah, and a lot of the information that some of these different reporters and historians got actually came from the porters on the railways and the bus boys in the hotels, the doormen, the bellmen, that kind of thing. So a lot of those stories were passed down to their kids, and we'll get into it on that episode. But it should be a fun one. I've been hearing about it, for a long time.
Me too.
When they started doing, the whole Little Chicago talk, and if y'all want to check it out before then, you can look on johnsonsdepot.org. That's put up by a history professor over there at ETSU, and he's kind of gone through. He's got a lot of old photos, a lot of history and stuff that he's found about the area, downtown Johnson City, all the way back to the 1800s. Some really cool stuff. Check them out. Come back and be sure and check out Aether Weaver. Be sure and check out the artist known as Tim. Be sure and check out the Scintillating Lens. See, I'm the only one here that's not really doing anything other than
I'll give it a
this
better
right
one.
now,
Check
so.
out Jason Flack. He actually did something for that project.
Okay, yeah. Support your local artists that are doing stuff that you like. go out and see shows if
It's
there's.
like we're not active, but you can still see.
Yeah, I mean,
Pillbillies.
me and Dustin still got corned beef and the Pillbilly stuff. If you want to buy a T-shirt or buy some music, we're on. Put us on your Spotify list. The corned beef and the Pillbillies. We're out there.
Our lovely intro song is ours.
Yeah. So
I need to add some. I need to finish it.
yeah.
Look at this. We're like going all crazy Neo on us now.
glitchy. Let's see if the other camera's working. I guess.
Well, look, we're catching up. So
I
I'm
guess
telling you.
the
Oh yeah! Look at
OBS
this go.
program is glitching a little now. There we go. Now we're caught up.
If anybody wants to hear some redneck music and you are still with us, you can go to my stuff, which is theartistknownastim.com. There's no ads or anything. It is a lot of like hillbilly stuff, not really bluegrass. More
Hey,
like
and you were
folky
on
stuff.
the Don't Quit Your Day Job podcast.
Yeah, that's out
last
of
week. That was a good interview.
out of Pittsburgh. If anybody's interested, it's actually I didn't know it at the time when I contacted the the guy that runs. His name's Paul Neal, super nice guy out of Pittsburgh, and I just saw a podcast I'd happened to run across, and I like a smaller podcast, and I was like, oh, there's some pretty cool interviews. It's just like the first one I heard was a guy who's a guitar player for a band called Little Caesar, and it's just a band that has literally been around since like all the 80s hair band days and stuff.
Wow.
They've had record deals and all this stuff. It's just we never heard of them, but over in Europe they still tour and all that. Anyway, I'll check it out. He's got all kinds of them. But then I got to digging deeper after I did because I got in my head, I was like, if I keep listening to how this guy does interviews, I'm going to start rehearsing my questions, answering and stuff. So I stopped after like 4 episodes, and I was like, I don't want to do it natural. And it turned out he's interviewed like Joe Queer. He's interviewed, I think a cool interview was like the singer from Cowboy Mouth back in the day, had that song, Genesis, turn off the radio.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, the whole point was he's actually interviewed successful people, and I thought it was really funny that.
Well, that was a good interview. I'm a consumer of podcasts, and I listened to the whole thing and enjoyed it. So, yeah, Don't Quit Your Day Job podcast. Tim did a good interview on there where he kind of talks about his experiences playing music over 20 years, and I definitely related to a lot of what he was talking about. Having been a unsuccessful musician for
I breathed
a long
in
time
a
too.
lot of stuff that I felt like looking back on it that I was like that kind of sounded like almost like a half truth, but I felt like if I'd gone down some of these stories.
Yeah, you can't explain everything.
Yeah, like but I cut myself short on all that stuff. But anyway, if you're interested in podcasts, I do like Paul's podcast. It's got the abbreviations around it, or whatever. It's parentheses. Don't quit your day job, and it's smaller musicians, or I thought it was. There's some more accomplished people on there.
But either way, it was a good interview, and I just wanted to throw that out there. It was really cool. So be sure and check that out. Support people. One of the reasons that we did the podcast, we talked about how a lot of the media is owned by the same people and is controlled by the same interests. And there's a lot of independent folks out here, not just us, and they're turning up a lot of good information. And check them out. The old media is on the way out. They're just, they're being boosted by, YouTube and corporate money. But realistically, that's not what people want to see. So go out there and find people who you like to watch, find people who you like to listen to, and support them whatever way it is. If they're taking Patreon or just donations or PayPal or whatever, our show's free. We want it to stay free. I'm not doing this to make any money. I'm just doing it for fun. So just watch our show and share it, and support the people who are out there doing it for a living, who do a good job and do good work, who you like. And we want to thank you for joining us. Dustin, thanks for joining us again.
Always.
Keep seeing
And
you go.
looking forward to having you back on some more episodes. It's nice having you back for this past couple. And Tim,
Cliff,
we'll see you next week.
see y'all next week.